Hey folks, and welcome to the Deconstructor of Fun podcast. I'm your host, Mishka Katkov, and in this episode, we are going to talk about live operations. Now, shipping new games, I'm sure this is not a surprise to anybody, but shipping new games is very, very difficult, especially with the current market, with the limitations of the privacy and the saturations, etc., etc. So, we've known this for a long time that operating and growing games is really the cornerstone of free to play. And we've also known that even operating and growing games on a single platform is pretty tough. But how about when you expand this across different platforms at PC, at Xbox, at PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, mobile? How do you run a game across all these platforms? So to answer this question, we got Dimo Dimov, who's a vice president of live games at Gameloft, joining the podcast. Now, Dimo, in the beginning, we're going to talk about, of course, Dimo's background. He's been with Gameloft for 17 years. 17 years, all the way from QA to VP of LiveOps. We're going to talk about the evolution of live operations, the importance of community feedback, the challenges of managing cross-platform games like Disney Speedstorm and Asphalt Legends Unite, which are both under Dimo's responsibility. We're going to explore the role of AI and the future of gaming, and of course talk about the exciting new titles in the development of Gameloft. I'm personally always very interested in asking very basic questions of like, how do you, as a VP, run multiple games? Like, what do you do in your day-to-day life? So I hope you enjoy this conversation. I hope you get a lot of insights from this, as many of you are planning, working, developing live ops games for multiple different platforms. And if I may ask something, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love to have you as a subscriber. So tap on, click on wherever the button is. We want to get as big of an audience as possible to get more guests like Dimo on and give you these insights. So anyways, without further ado, thank you for listening. And ladies and gentlemen, Dimo Dimov. This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance. Dimo Dimov, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me, Mishka. Much appreciated.
And just a quick introduction of you. You're a vice president of live games at Gameloft, and you've been with Gameloft a long time, longer than I've been doing games. 17 years, going all the way from traditional QA up to a VP levels. Tells about Gameloft's career progression is pretty on point. Can you tell you a little bit about your career? Like 17 years of Gameloft, that's a whole career.
Yeah, that feels nowadays it feels like a lifetime. I joined in 2007. I was 20 years old back in those days, and I would say it was just kind of lucky that I ended up here. And I was not making games for the first 10 games of my career. I was part of. I started as a part of e-commerce, so I was the witness of this Java games boom, doing the websites for all of the mobile operators. Then I went through different online technical departments, the LiveOps solutions team, the CRM, and luckily for me, I ended up in production doing games. This one was
Nice.
not a coincidence.
Yeah, and a lot of questions. You're not French. That's a unique thing because oftentimes when we think about French companies, if you're a VP, you must be fluent in French at least.
Yeah, I'm very far away from fluent in French. I'm not gonna say anything in French here because I don't want to embarrass the company and myself. Nowadays we have a few executives which are not French. As a matter of fact, we have also another VP of Live Games. So our portfolio is split in two, and he's Ukrainian. He doesn't speak French, so it's no longer mandatory to speak French in order to be on executive position, at least in Gameloft.
Yeah, it's the same thing at I believe Voodoo as well. Like French companies are becoming more international. That's good. I love it.
Yes, that's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, for a long time that didn't happen in Europe. French were French until the. Anyways, we're not here to talk about the executives of French companies. We're here to talk about live services. And as a head of live services at Gameloft, like what is your day-to-day job? What do you do?
In my day-to-day job, I try to spend as much time as possible with the game teams. We have a structure how our game teams are distributed. Right now, I'm working closely with Disney Speedstorm, which is going live, going global on mobile on 11th of July. So when this podcast goes out, it will be already global. But as of now, it's in the final weeks. I also work on Asphalt 9, which is soon to be known as Asphalt Legends Unite, another big update, basically a rebranding of the game. It's going to be the same game, people will keep their progress, but it's going to be something different. So I'm trying to spend as much time as possible with those teams, working on the product monetization strategy, design, doing playtest. I just went out from a playtest, so I have a PlayStation here and we're playing Disney Speedstorm, being kicked by the top players. Along with this, of course, I do need to focus also on some more strategical tasks, let's say, in regards to the analysis of the performance, analysis of the company's roadmap, forecasting the profitability of the game, the P&Ls, just so that we make sure that the team composition, the team structure corresponds to its ambition. Now it's more important than ever to have a financially sustainable game. We're gonna speak about it later in the podcast because I have a very strong opinion about this. And it's part of the job. When you have a profitable game, you get the freedom to do pretty much anything with it.
Yeah, I agree. When you're on green, you're safe. When you're red, you're not safe.
No, you're absolutely not.
That's those are the rules of the game. Really, really simple. And how do you manage your, I wouldn't even say work, but your focus? Two different games, both are cross-platform games, right? Asphalt Legends Unite is a cross-platform. So you have multiple platforms, two games, two big teams. I would assume Asphalt is made out of Barcelona.
Both of these games are, as a matter of fact, developed primarily by Barcelona. Asphalt Unite is developed in co-development with a small team here in Sofia as well. So we expanded the team for this big update, and we'll probably keep it with that size because this co-development seems to be working out quite nicely.
Yeah,
but both of these games.
It's a lot of management. It's a lot of management. It's like. For people outside Europe, Barcelona is on the other side of Europe than Sofia, literally different seas. So it's as far as you can get almost from in Europe. Maybe if you go to Portugal, that's the furthest point.
It's a 3-hour flight. To me, it takes me more time to go to my hometown nowadays. So I'm trying also to I'm trying to travel as often as possible. I would say that I'm sort of remote for the team, but we know each other very well. We've been working together for years, and as part of the management, I'm not alone in this. We have a game manager for each. We have fantastic game managers for these games. There's also producers who are helping them. So of course they're making my life much easier, so that I'm interfering only when we are speaking about the strategical decisions, testing new features. Of course, monetization and live operations is more in my garden, but I also have some fantastic product managers there, and it's just kudos for them. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. But I'm interested in how do you add value as an executive, because this is oftentimes challenging because you don't want to interfere or micromanage, but then again, you are technically in charge of these products succeeding, so you have to have some kind of influence, but you don't want to have too much influence where you take the agency away from the people who are also responsible for the product. Like how do you manage that part?
I'm trying not to influence directly what the team is doing and what the team is going to do. It's more about creating this environment of creativity, this framework, what the team can do. And if I am just facilitating stuff here and there, then I'm doing my job good. If I have to interfere, I say, okay, now you have to do this, and this feature. That's a bad executive. Because people, they need to feel that they are owners of what they are doing, they're owners of their games. So to me, it's really important to empower the teams, to give them the right platform to speak for themselves. We're doing some very interesting events nowadays. It started here in Sofia, and now also Barcelona and other studios are doing it. We have this event called Yearly Roadmap Workshop. It usually happens once per year, a day dedicated for the whole team. It's just the culmination of a whole process. We are obviously benchmarking, gathering information throughout the whole year, but that's the moment when we gather 50, 70 up to 100. I think in Asphalt it was 170 and something people event last year outside of the studio, and we are brainstorming on different topics in regards to the future of the game, essentially trying to narrow down what will be the direction. And nowadays, maybe 70-80% of the roadmap comes out from these workshops. Even if we had them in mind, it's a completely different story when the team has brainstorming, they propose it, they get to present it. At the end of these sessions, every single group is making a short presentation and stating this, and these are our ideas. And we got some amazing results out of it.
So you plan a full year ahead in these roadmap meetings.
Sometimes we might even plan stuff for more than a full year, but roadmap is a living artifact, so it's more of a direction, and it's just the first step. We get a bunch of ideas, then the product team, the core team, they're refining them, and we use them as a sort of a backlog of ideas. We've even had some exercises trying to think 3 years ahead. That's how Asphalt Unite actually came up during this exercise, and we were discussing, okay, maybe we should have the work in progress name was Asphalt Forever, so we decided, okay, that's going to be the Forever Asphalt franchise. What do we do with it? And whether it comes a year ahead or just a few months ahead, it really doesn't matter, as long as you have a solid feature, solid plan that comes from the team, and it's not just put top and bottom.
Yeah, I've actually seen one of those 160-page decks from Gameloft, and I've seen actually the Asphalt deck from years back. So it looks like it takes a lot of time to make one of those decks. Like, they are well made, they're very presentable. It's not just random ideas thrown in. It's a lot of work, and it's very unique. I don't know any other companies that does a full year. I usually know quarterly planning, but a full year is a lot of work from the team, and you find that useful.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. And again, it's not a set in stone for a year. It's just you got so many ideas that usually it fits into your yearly roadmap. Of course, it's being refined on quarterly, even sometimes on monthly basis, depending on if we see something that we got, for instance, a community feedback. If they propose something that makes sense for us, yeah, we are absolutely putting it in the game. We do listen, and nowadays, if you have a live service game and you don't listen to your community, you're pretty much doomed. These people, they're very loyal to their games, and we are obliged to listen to their voice.
You've heard of heroic labs by now, and we keep talking about them because in today's mature market, you need every edge to be successful. Rather than spending those precious company dollars on building game tech, focus on building your game and shipping it. Get into your players' hands faster and grow your community. Heroic Labs is battle-tested partner and friend of the podcast. Their tech enables you to be flexible, creative, and scale for success. Heroic Labs has your tech stack covered. Whether you're looking for a world-class back-end game server, an amazing game development framework, fantastic LiveOps tooling, or reliable mass scalability, Heroic Labs has solutions for all of these challenges. And it's not just us at Deconstructor of Fun praising Heroic Labs. The company works with some of the world's biggest publishers on many of the beloved games. Focus on your game, save a big chunk of cheese, and avoid tech risks with Heroic Labs. Yeah. So tell me about, there's so many questions. How has the LiveOps evolved at Gameloft? Because what we've known is that Gameloft used to be for almost forever just a purely mobile publisher. And last few years, it has really focused much more on PC console. And as you're saying, bringing in cross-platform games, and that brings in a plethora of challenges of live operations with multiple platforms and multiple versions and so forth. Like how has the LiveOps evolved?
I would say when I started working with the game teams and in production like 6 or 7 years ago, I don't even remember, LiveOps was purely a monetization responsibility. So at that time, cross-play, cross-platform was not even a thing. You have the LiveOps calendar, and it's either the product manager, back in those days they were called monetization manager. They're responsible for it, they execute it, they are preparing some requests for the game team, but at that moment they were not really perceived as part of it, even though they should. Nowadays, live operation is live ops responsibility is widely spread across the team. We want the first layer is we want to keep everyone in the team, no matter if you're an artist, a developer, a QA, to be aware of the vital KPIs of the game, where it stands, and more importantly, how the features they worked on are affecting these games. So now when it comes to live services, everyone is involved to some extent. Let's say if we are preparing a new feature, no matter its size, or any sort of change in the game, it should have a dashboard. So you always stick a dashboard to your idea and you follow carefully how it is supposed to perform. We kind of look at it from the prism of product mindset. You had a great podcast and an article about product mindset. I believe it was with Konstantin from Belka.
Yes.
And it was very influential for us, by the way. We even have an internal article based on it. So yeah, kudos for that. And indeed, now when you're pitching for a feature and you're a feature owner, usually a designer, not necessary, you know from day one how your dashboard should look like. And all these proxy KPIs that the feature should achieve in order to complement the strategy of the game, the pillars that you have in let's say the yearly strategy.
And how do you change? Like, I'm interested in it because you have these strategic responsibilities in how the company runs LiveOps, and then you have 2 direct product responsibilities with big product teams working on it and so forth. Like, how are you able to focus on each of the 3 key vectors in your work? Do you separate it on days? Like on Tuesday, I'm going to Asphalt. On Wednesday, I'm going to be in Speedstorm. On Friday,
I would say it is planned way ahead. I know exactly when I'm supposed to be with the Asphalt, with Speedstorm team, or with my strategical team. Besides these 2 games, I also have a bunch of other games under my scope, but we do have global directors of product who are directly reporting to me, but in charge of these games. Both of them are also based in Sofia. So it's not just France nowadays running the company, but when it comes to planning, I'm still trying to focus more on the day-to-day work with the teams. I have 2 or 3 calls focused particularly on working with those teams, and the strategic part of it, it's a little bit easier to predict when you have the strategic calls. We do have Tuesdays XCOM meetings or some Thursday sync-ups with the whole LiveOps. Essentially, it's a matter of planning. When I Monday morning, first thing I do, my first task Monday morning is to take a look at my calendar, see what I got, see which are the green zones, and trying to plan the week a little bit ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
I'm just
never
always,
works because with
yeah.
live games, there are things coming up every day. Even yesterday, we got a mini crisis, so we were figuring it out at the end of the day. But I would say, that's challenging, but also very rewarding when you overcome these problems. You see, and you directly see it in the dashboard. So then you see you're improving your churn rate, your monetization KPIs. Yeah, we're doing something.
Yeah. Yes. Or you're doing something and it doesn't resonate. That's also what can often happen.
That
And that's
also
the
happens.
challenge.
So,
That's the most challenging part.
yeah, in that regards, I have a very interesting story. 'Cause right now we're on the finish line of soft launching Disney Speedstorm, and obviously when you are soft launching a game, your primary KPI is early retention. So you're working retention day 1, day 3. In our case, it goes through a bunch of proxy KPIs following the onboarding churn rate. So we have just in the first 5 races, we have more than 100 tracking events who are showing us exactly how the player journey is looking, and we're constantly improving. So we decide, okay, we're totally fine, we're going global, and out of a sudden we get a report that we hit a huge increase in churn rate after race 1 and race 2. Then this is literally 3 weeks before global we announced it. Then you go through the dashboard, you go through all sorts of analysis, and we realized that it's just a problem with the bot difficulty. The bots for these first 2 races were way too challenging, and people were winning only about 50% of them, while we are aiming at 95 and upwards. So boom, you just make a simple change server side and it's all done. But up until the moment we figured it out, these were the 3 most critical hours in our soft launch, I'd say. Because out of a sudden, everything we've been doing for 6 months it looked like it disappeared.
Yeah.
What the fuck? What did we do wrong?
There's another point in that. So, with the sudden change of KPIs, so of course, like this type of a sudden change of KPIs is too sudden, and it kind of tells you that there's a major crisis point. But what I've seen in live games or games in soft launch is, well, actually, soft launch, but both games that are beginning to scale, is the rapid deterioration of cohorts. And you were kind of finding some kind of a baseline in your soft launch and basing your projections on it. And what you see is like every cohort is coming in. Like when you, basically, I like the sort of a monthly view of where you can see payback as a sort of a threshold on the top, and then you see a line climbing towards that payback, which is the LTV. And so you're basically looking at LTV CAC, and there you're looking at not only like how soon we can get to the payback, but you're really looking at the form of the curve, in the sense that if the curve is plateauing, that means it doesn't matter how long you push the LTV, it's not going to be substantially bigger, and payers are not either paying more or they are not doing repeat purchases. And when you start putting in and kind of like putting in those cohorts in order, you can start seeing that every subsequent graph of the new month is coming in lower than before. So the money is less and less and less, while the payback is further and further away. Like, have you seen those type of graphs, and what do you do?
Yeah, that's happened. That's actually, this is the normal distribution of those graphs. Yeah. You know that your first month would be the most successful one. Okay, you might influence this with user acquisition. We did some tests with partners of us who are heavily investing in a small project, and we suddenly see like retention going from 35% to 55%. So what are you doing, guys? But it's just a matter of buying those users, and it's abnormal. When you count out those conditions, usually the lifetime value of your cohorts it's going down with time, and again you should anticipate this. So based on the first couple of months, okay, maybe not a couple, but if you look at on weekly basis, we can more or less forecast how our cohorts are going to evolve, And based on this, we are also narrowing down the level of investment that we should put into this game. Um, we call this period few months after you're going global. This is our launch phase when we are trying to get as high as possible, and we see exactly the evolution of those cohorts. And even if you put it, because it's one thing to put it from the perspective of weeks and months, but when you look at years, it's even more drastical. We have a strategy game, March of Empires, who is on the market for 9 years, and it's by far our most successful strategy game. It's a top 3 or top 4 in the company overall. I know these numbers because we just did the early workshop, so I was preparing. 86% of revenues in this game are from cohorts that are 1 year or more older. So essentially, you have all these very veteran players, and this also defines the strategy of this game. Obviously, when you have this type of cohorts and this type of game evolution, you're focusing on those players. These are the guys that you want to keep into the game. And here, retention day 1, day 3, day 14, it doesn't really matter. It's mice nuts in the whole scheme.
Oh, that's a good quote. But that's exactly the point that you made, because a lot of the times when companies would talk to them, they would flaunt at me like day 1, day 3, and you're like, no, I'm happy for you, but that doesn't mean anything. It's like a moment in time, and it could be a false flag. It could be true. What I really like about is the like looking at the shape of the curve, because as you said in March of Empires, yes.
March of Empires.
I would assume that the LTV curve is like not stopping. It's just slowly increasing and increasing as the cohort until it passes through the customer acquisition cost and just continues to go for years up and right. And that's what you're looking for, and not essentially like high retention and early paybacks.
Especially in those type of games, they're mostly well Kraken driven. So your early indication doesn't give you that much of information. Out of a sudden, you get a player who spends 9,000 in a day. And okay, how do you optimize your user acquisition strategy based on this? You just can't. You keep on grinding and you're hoping to get another player like this. But what matters down the line is the big picture and how the overall cohorts are maturing. Yeah. And how you keep those players engaged.
Exactly. And then you're the whole LiveOps, the way I've traditionally seen it, is just stacking payer cohorts on top of each other and creating a sustainable business through that. So we've talked a lot about the paybacks and so forth. Like, how do you work with marketing? Like, what is that relationship? Because I've seen all kinds of relationships. I've seen non-existing relationship where there's a studio that works on the game and marketing sits on a different continent, and they exchange emails and calls, but that's not a very functioning relationship, and they kind of both work in a vacuum while the team is tied to a product and the marketing is not tied to a product. This is one of the products they are marketing. And then I've seen sort of a contrarian relationships where product and marketing are fighting constantly each other, with a product accusing marketing for bringing too bad of a users that are collapsing the KPIs, and marketing is saying, no, your monetization or whatever is so low, or your LTV is so low that we cannot bring better users, and there's that battle. And then I've seen marketers being a part of the game team and ride or die with that game team. How is marketing set up at Gameloft?
Back in the days, the evolution of marketing in Gameloft is very similar to the evolution of live services. Back in the days, marketing was a completely separate vertical, so it's 5 or 6 years ago. And they're working in a silo. Their targets are based on DNI. They usually reach those targets since they put a lot of efforts into getting users from India or Indonesia, and you reach your DNI target, but that brings, I would say, zero value to the game. Then we started working more closely with marketing people changed. Nowadays, marketing is considered part of product. It is considered part of the game team. Our marketing experts are involved basically on every single day-to-day basis. Today we have a big playtest here in the studio, and everyone who is involved in marketing is part of this playtest. Because we are truly trying to narrow down marketing's objectives to the game's objectives. Since down the line, the game is what matters. Yes, you do have your marketing vertical, of course, you have some experts who are on the top of it, but what matters is the game. And essentially, every single marketing activation or even the user acquisition strategy they're considered as part of the product roadmap of the game. When you're making an activation, it is carefully aligned with the live operations calendar. Right now, when you have let's say a big activation, you spend millions of dollars for it, you really want to get some very quick cashback. And the way to do it in first place is enhance your live operations with this. Then of course you're going to get users, you're going to get extra value over time, but you really need this quick payback. And for us, what really works is have marketing completely embedded within the game teams. No matter if you are ASO specialist, activations, user acquisition, game community, especially game community managers, they're very, very important for us.
And that's where the power of your roadmaps kind of comes in, because when you invest so much time and effort into creating these massive roadmap documents, there are also tools for aligning not only the executives, but also all the support teams around what the game is doing and how is it evolving during the upcoming year.
Yeah, exactly.
This podcast is brought to you by Data AI. Now, you're asking, didn't they get acquired by Sensor Tower? They did, and that's awesome. Here's why. Whether you loved using Data.ai or Sensor Tower, the combined company will offer customers even stronger and more detailed insights on the full digital customer journey. Exciting times lie ahead as Sensor Tower and Data AI join forces. Go to data.ai or sensortower.com and get on board with undeniably the best data partner in the business. Now, back to the episode.
I just thought of an example about marketing and game community managers, since they're getting more and more important now with the evolution of the web stores, but that's a different story. With Asphalt, we have community manager who is very well let's say embedded within the product team. We have these twice per week calls exactly focused on the LiveOps calendar, and he was giving so many suggestions. He used to be a pro player that at some point the team decided to have his name is Codin, so he's an amazing guy, and we had Codin's event once per month, Codin's section in the shop, because these are the promotions that he's suggesting based on players' feedback. And so for once, actually, our players liked our promotions because more or less they were coming from them. Yeah, of course, they don't like the pricing. There's things that they don't really appreciate. But what they appreciate is that they are heard and that their guy is speaking together with the monetization team and being capable. And these are still one of the most successful promotions at that time. We were really rapidly trying to catch up to target. And I would say that it played a big role to catch it one day before the end of the year.
That's awesome. And I I've been seeing this for years in live operations. Like, data is, it's vital, but I think the other two channels of decision making is not only the analytics that you're seeing, but also the gut feeling of the team that should be experts in this genre and in the game that they're making, but also the voice of the community. And when you kind of combine these, like, you don't even need to necessarily combine this information together, the data, the community, and the gut feeling, but as you're addressing the input from all three sources of information, I think you make the best possible live operations decisions.
Yes, it's an aspect that I didn't mention. To me, it's very important for game teams to know very well their game, to play it, and not just for the game teams. I believe executives should be doing it. I'm trying to be involved in as many play sessions as possible, play test sessions. I've been a competitive gamer my entire life, maybe for 22 years. So I've started with Warcraft 3 that paid for my university, then Clash Royale, Brawl Stars. broadcasting Brawl Stars tournaments from time to time. So I really want, and I believe that even though yes, we do have a strategic role, we should get down to this of knowing very well our games, of understanding what are the players' needs. If I put a bundle or a promotion and I don't like it, no one else will like it. If I don't buy my own stuff, who's going to do it?
How much do you play your own games? Like in a week, like how many hours do you spend playing the games?
Oh, I can put a very clear statistic. So I have 200 hours for the past 6 months on Disney Speedstorm, just Disney Speedstorm. So yeah, that's on average it's an hour and a half per day. But I have a Joker card. My stepson loves the game, so we are playing together a lot. And now we introduced a team mode where we can play together, and that increased our family engagement within the game substantially. But I really like the game. I'm working on this game for exactly 6 months, just after soft launch. And I decided, okay, I need to be at least as good as the game team. Then I decided I need to be at least as good as a top 100 player to really understand what we are going to do.
Have there been any games that you've live operated, not necessarily now, that you really did not want to play? And you still played them?
I've live operated more than 50 games back in the days. I've essentially my career started by making a unit dedicated to games that are no longer supported. So this is a bunch of 30-35 games. I would say I played a fair amount of them, the big ones at least. I do recall a game or two that I really didn't want to play, and I was desperately trying to find a person who takes care of them. And I'm just a dashboard guy who is invited to some meetings and trying to be silent because you don't really know the game. But when it comes to the big games, to the games that matter, we're also discussing between me and Igor is the other VP, okay, which games does he like, which games I like, so that when we choose a game, we know that we are going to invest 100% of us. Luckily for me, he's not that much into the competitive side of the gaming, so I'm getting all these titles, and they're mostly based in Sofia, Barcelona, Lviv to some extent.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's the challenging part. If you would be working on a game that you're not into. I don't remember if I worked on games that I didn't like playing, but I remember working on games that I didn't want to play more. Like, yeah, it's fine, but I can't imagine playing this game every single day for an hour. And then it becomes kind of challenging when you feel like you're not the right person to drive this product, and you're kind of like trying to take a very sort of a product focused mindset, which is wrong because you have to take a holistic mindset for the whole game and not just the dashboards. So, yeah, but you have a QA mindset. I like that. You're able to put in work into anything.
Yeah, I do like it. I would like that.
Like one of the challenging part about live operations and just managing a live game is new content coming in. How do you structure that? Because let me give an example. Like Zynga was quite good at this. Is that it kind of broke down the new content into something that is coming in all the time, kind of like the small things, the live events, that normal stuff. And then there was always these bold beats, what it was called. It's kind of like the type of a content that significantly changes and creates that a big uplift, or the goal is to create that big uplift in a game. Like, how do you structure your content pipeline for the year as you're making those?
It's a great question. That's by far the biggest challenge right now in live services games. It starts all by the fact that you should know your game very well. And by knowing, it's either playing and also analyzing. So what matters to us is to examine I would call it the exhaust rate of the content that you put into a game. So it starts usually at the top of the value and gradually diminishes. I think it's called net present lifetime value. And then by examining this content, you can create a very clear pipeline. It's all about the pace of adding new content and the pace of exhausting it. And this one is very important. In some teams, we have a dedicated Scrum team just for new monetizable content. It could be racers, cards, progressions, items, anything, but things that we know they're going to sell, they're going to monetize very well. And down the line, it's all about optimizing this pipeline. And it is very important to optimize this pipeline because it opens freedom and resources to work on an actual flagship feature development, things that are exciting, that we believe are going to bring value, but of course there is a higher chance of risking it. You might work on a feature for 1 year and people don't play or play, but they don't pay anything on it. So again, when it comes to features, it is very important for us to align them with the strategic KPIs of the game, whether it depends on the state of the game. If it's a new game, obviously you're focusing on things that are going to improve your onboarding, mid-to-game LTV. And when it comes to old games, it is all about making your veterans happy, engaging them. And it goes through this product mindset prism. Down the line, it should lead to an incremental value, usually calculated in revenue, for your game.
And so if we're going on a very like concrete level, do you have the team investing into kind of like the day-to-day, week-to-week operations, and at the same time there's different pod or existing pod that is investing into that big feature that is coming down the line, or how is it structured?
It is a little bit different from team to team, but usually each of the team is split into some scrum teams or strike teams, whatever you put it. And there are teams who are focused on long-term development, so they know that their feature is getting out in 6 months or in a year, or if it's a technical improvement. We have a live game that is now migrated to Unreal, so it's and this is it's March of Empires actually, 9 years old on the market, 12 years in development. It takes a year to do it, so it's a separate team. However, all these teams, they are part of the big team. They have these events at the end of every sprint. The product review, the sprint review is done by the entire team, so every Scrum team presents what they did. But still their primary focus is either the content or those features that are part of their particular roadmap.
And you're talking about the teams presenting what they did and so forth. How is the reporting structured? Like I've worked at mostly American companies, and we would have like weekly. When I was a PM, we would have weekly. Americans love to call them war meetings.
War meetings, okay.
Yeah, I think they were called war meetings. Americans love war. We know. But yeah, like we had these meetings with the executives that were like weekly, very numbers driven. Product people and executives would go through the latest numbers. And of course, the big focus was on the key games, but those were kind of like the weekly meetings. Then we'd naturally have these quarterly meetings that were more focused about, bigger growth incentives, and that would bring in the auxiliary teams. How do you structure your meetings, the reporting of it?
On a very low level, at the end of each sprint, we have the sprint review. It's not done by all the teams, but most of them do. And by definition, everyone in the company is invited to this. So VPs are invited, C-levels, executives, they're invited. When they come, it's great because they see the progress, they see the dynamics of the team. Of course, we have dedicated sessions just for the team leadership. Usually done for the big games, it's done once per quarter. Sometimes you might do it more often. But indeed, depending also on the autonomy of the team, we have some teams that are being called out to these discussions once per year, because you see that a game is solidly performance for the past 4 or 5 years. They know what they are doing, so no one questions them. You just let them do what they do. Because again, the more successful you are, the less pressure you feel from executives or from stakeholders. We used to
Yes, yeah.
have we used to have quarterly product reviews for every single game, and it was way too exhausting, especially for the executives, because at some point we were spending 2 weeks every quarter just preparing, listening to these presentations, and also teams they share their feedback that most of the people stopped working just to prepare those presentations. Like, come on, no, we want this to be lightweighted. So yeah, you do your product reviews for your team, and everyone is invited. If they join, they join.
That's awesome. I remember like my first job in gaming was a product job, and every Tuesday we had a war room meeting, and every Monday was a day when you kind of almost like mentally prepared and started doing the numbers, and then Tuesday you went until evening kind of preparing the documents and the presentations, and so you had that hardish Monday, hard Tuesday that went really late in the evening. And then for the rest of the week, you were kind of burned and already preparing for the next week. So you didn't really focus on improving the product that much. You focused on delivering the report every week to the management team, and that is not the best way to operate. This was over a decade ago, like, but still, it's I understand. But I wanted to ask you the question on like, you try to be very smart about the requests and the need to report. But what do you do in a situation where you see that the game team is just unable to execute, hit the target? They're flirting with the red. So what's going on then?
That's usually the moment when first I'm getting the game manager, the top leadership, and we're starting to discuss what do they believe is missing in the team. Usually they have a very clear idea of what's wrong, but it sometimes it gets into this micromanagement situation. I've done this once with the Asphalt team when we were not performing very well. And it felt like the team is a little bit lost. No, it was just a matter of communication. This was the moment when we created our, I think we called it Strike Force group or stuff like this, where we gathered monetization, marketing, economists, and the leadership, of course. And we start focusing, okay, what's working in the LiveOps calendar, what's not working, why are we underperforming, what will be, okay, we have this calendar, what are our expectations of the revenue. And in the beginning, everyone is freaking out. How do we forecast our revenue? What if we missed it? And it doesn't matter if you miss it. You're getting better and better with this forecast the more you're doing it. Nowadays, actually we keep on doing it, not with this pace, but for them it's a walk in the park. They share the calendar, they say, yeah, this is going to do that much, this campaign is going to do that. And then down the line, we will end up with this amount of revenue and this evolution of the KPIs. And then usually the margin of error is less than 5%. So that created this pace of reporting. They report to themselves most of the time. You don't need executives for this. But yeah, a couple of times I do jump in such situation. Usually it happens once per game, and then you see people organizing themselves, and yeah, that's when I see that they actually can manage this stuff by themselves. I realize, okay, I'm doing a good job. That's what I wanted to do. I don't want to micromanage those guys. And also it creates this trust between executives and the team. If they are in some kind of doubt, they just come and say, can you join us and share your opinion? And hopefully they're not afraid of asking. I know that some guys are, but it's just that I usually look angry and I don't know how to change this.
Step into the future of game monetization with Xsolla. Xsolla empowers developers and publishers to market, sell, connect, and optimize their games globally. From payment solution to a full suite of tools designed to grow your game's revenue while fostering a loyal player base. Xsolla is your game's gateway to worldwide success. With Xsolla, the world is your playground. Visit xsolla.com today and find all the solutions that will help you to power your games into success everywhere. So you mentioned one thing that I think is also very important is, I mean, we've been talking about reporting in various different ways, but you basically talked about that the teams are doing reporting themselves not for executives, but for themselves. And they're doing forecasting for themselves. And I think that is really, really important because, again, I worked at studios where it was contrary to that, where teams were allergic to any kind of reporting, any kind of forecasting. And I think it made them worse because they were never forced to think about the impact of the work that they are doing. And when you're doing the forecasting or reporting, it's not per se the report that matters. It's the work and the thinking that you put into like thinking about the effect, the product effect of your work, rather than like, oh, I don't want to present to executives, it's a waste of time and so forth. Like, no. You need to think about what you're doing and put a number on it and then measure, did it deliver, and what you can do differently. That's the only way to learn, is by measurement.
Yeah, absolutely. And when reporting to your teammates, it's much more lightweighted because sometimes all you do is open a Looker dashboard and you report based on this dashboard. Then when an executive is coming, I'm telling them, do the same reporting. It's an awesome report. You don't need to put 7 days of work into creating a nice presentation. I know you can, but all that matters is to report in the lightest possible way so that you don't waste your time. And also don't stress yourself. Did I put the right font? Or maybe the colors are not correct. Come on. That's why we have these Looker Tableau dashboards. Use them.
Well, since we're talking about different tools, the Looker dashboards and so forth, like what type of actually I was just gonna add, like basically what I'm trying to ask is AI, machine learning, live service operator, like how are you looking at this sort of the latest enhancement to the tooling? Is Gameloft on the forefront? Is it more kind of like strategically looking at what they could employ from these AI advancements? Like, what's your position on the tool set and platforms?
We're constantly experimenting. Let's say I don't know if we are pioneers or behind, because companies don't speak that much about it, and usually companies that are very vocal about how they use AI, they don't do this. But in our case, yeah, we figure out that there's certain areas where AI could help. Of course, it's just another tool. To put it simply, at least at this moment, you said it very well. It's a tool. If you use it correctly, you can get some value. Artwork, yeah, it could work, but again, you have constraints. It works only if you have this huge pool of existing assets. And again, if there is a 10-year-old game, yeah, you absolutely have it. You have tens of thousands of assets, and you could get some stuff. When it's a new game, it's a little bit trickier. However, what I believe is that in future, the most successful game companies, they will find a way to take leverage of it. It will evolve, and that's for sure. And we should evolve with the AI and use its capabilities to its.
Why do you think that the companies who are experimenting and investing into AI don't want to talk about their work with AI? Because I down, not on the microphone, but I have these conversations a lot where companies are investing into AI, but just CEOs don't want to talk about it.
I know it mostly based on friends I have in the industry. This is not exactly scientific approach, but I know what they're doing, and they just said, no, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, once we get something substantial, yeah, I'm gonna be bragging about it. But right now, it's not. If it's not a game changer, let's say that we'll be testing, we'll be trying it out. Maybe there is also another aspect of it based on their financial results. But
yeah.
Well,
and when you're using different tools and platforms for live operations, are you using primarily internally developed ones, or are you using third-party tools, or is it in between? Because like some companies think this is strategic core competence, is to have your central tool set, your central tech for your dashboards, and we cannot use third-party tools. And the other ones are like, no, the making of the games and the the ability to deliver to our key players is our core competence, not the dashboards and the tool sets. Like, what's the position in Gameloft?
Back in the days, we were in everything we use in terms of reporting and tooling was entirely developed by us. Gameloft is a massive company for the standards of gaming industry, so you can always find someone who will do something for you. However, nowadays, especially when it comes to reporting to all these dashboards, we are looking into the standards, and we figure out that okay, they can do much better than our internal tools. However, still in some aspects, for instance, LiveOps solutions, our CRM tools, the tools that are managing the events, we're using our own tools mostly because we believe that the capabilities of these tools, the variation of narrowing down cohorts is way better than what is on the market. And also, if you want to integrate something, some third party, it's going to take way too much time. Because we do have our own infrastructure. Also, yeah, I was heavily involved in the development of our LiveOps solutions, so I kind of might be sentimental about it, and I'm not trying to be too vocal about the direction where we should go, because yeah, that's my baby, I like it. But yeah, in some aspects we're moving more towards third-party solutions. Still, let's say for the web stores, we did it by our own, like completely.
Right. Yeah, that's the challenge of big companies. Is like, as you said, there's always a team that is more than happy to do this tool internally, and they always underestimate the amount of work that goes to making this tool, and they always underestimate the amount of maintenance work that will need to happen after the tool is done. And quite often, in my experience at least, I much more enjoyed working with third-party tools because they were, somebody was actually selling it, and through that they had customers, and through customers they have real clients that they have to keep happy and deliver to them, versus a central tech tool. They will get you when they get to you.
Down the line, I do agree that it is more convenient to work with third-party tools. Again, maybe it's just me, because I'm here for 17 years. I know pretty much everyone in this company. I know what they're capable of, and I can rely to a certain extent on those people. Some of them I can rely completely. So if they say they're going to do it, they're doing it. But it's more about knowing who we're working with, rather than deciding should it be third party or internal.
Understood. Let's talk about kind of like the future of live operations, and where do you see kind of live services evolving in the next couple of years, especially looking at from your perspective of running live services for cross-platform titles?
Cross-platform titles would be the key element to me. What would really matter in the upcoming years? The successful games, they would master live operating their cross-platform titles. You have different platforms, you have different type of players, and still somehow you would need to have your LiveOps strategy fulfilling all needs. Nowadays, indeed, phones, they are almost as powerful as PCs, and actually some of them are more powerful than PCs and consoles. So pretty much, okay, you can deliver your game everywhere, but then narrowing down your live operations towards the need of the particular platform, that will be the tricky part. And the more I'm working with the cross platforms now, especially with consoles, I realize how difficult it is to find the balance. So to me, the companies that are able to nail this, they will be very successful. The rest will copy, but the pioneers will get, I would say, a substantial advantage.
Yeah. I can only agree. The cross-platform is challenging because isn't it so that you have to run the same update through all the platforms on the same day because they can't be out of sync?
Yes, and you have different certification processes. Essentially, your update is ready a month and a half before it goes live, and you have to constantly think of what we should do now, so that we're absolutely sure that in a month and a half it's going to be fine. And you also need to create your tech in a way that it is easy to be manipulated server side. I have a story of an asset being only being hard-coded in the client, and we realize it 24 hours before going live, and we have the wrong season thingy. So, based on this asset, we redesigned the whole season, the whole live operation season, so it fits. Otherwise, we have to postpone the next season with 2 or 3 weeks, and we're okay, guys. The rest is server side. We're gonna do it. You are amazing. So 22 hours, booking campaigns, booking events, making sure they work.
Damn.
Things like this happens, and we have to expect it. Failures, they will happen, and we just need to adapt to it.
Yeah. That's it's such a different mindset to traditional mobile updates, where if you fuck up something, let's just do a hot fix really quickly and get it going.
Yeah, and also when it comes to the monetization aspect of it, you need to have your campaigns running on all platforms, and that creates some obstacles. It's not like mobile. Yeah, we just add 100 more packs, and we can cover everything, literally everything. So you could have a separate pack for almost every single item in your game, and that's fine. On cross-platform, it's a different story.
And in addition to kind of like the trends, or what you're seeing as the future of live services, as the cross-platform, is there anything else that you are some kind of a trends in live services that you're particularly excited about, or otherwise following?
I've already mentioned it, I think, a couple of times, speaking about web stores. Now that they're really hot, and I'm mentioning it mostly because this was one of my side projects. We just released our Gameloft Club loyalty system, which is essentially a web store, and it's a web store for now, but I do see their role is way more embedded into the game's ecosystem, and being part of the LiveOps meta. There are companies right now on the market that are already doing it. You see some events that are run only on the web store. So you go into the game, you're playing your game, but you have to go to the web store to gain your rewards. So it's all about mastering the traffic towards this web store without being obviously you cannot put a direct link, so it goes through a proxy, it goes to your community, and managing your community, having community managers that understand what is their purpose is also crucial. But without them, you can't run your stores.
And part of the game stores, are you also thinking about owning basically your customer relationship, through an ID or some kind of a subscription service, or not subscription, but some kind of a service that allows you to get their email addresses or phone numbers or stuff like that? Like, is that also something that you're thinking of?
Thinking of, definitely. It's a matter of convincing our legal department what we can do. So these fights between game teams and legal, they're always there. But I very much appreciate our legal stopping us from doing something stupid, because I think during this past year, while we were developing the whole Gameloft Club system, I had a couple of very stupid ideas, and they put us in some trouble. But luckily for me, we were able to mitigate it earlier. So a lot of possibilities indeed, and it would depend also on the relationships between the stores and the publishers. So,
yeah. And I mean, like, as I'm running out of the topical questions, what are some of the things that because you've been at Gameloft for 17 years, you've been heading live operations for how long now?
I'm heading live operations for about 2 years.
Okay.
I was in charge of some of the LiveOps games, different games, for 6 years.
Yeah, and what would be sort of a learnings from the last 17 years that are applicable today as well?
It's a great question. It's a very open one. I would say, thinking out loud, the first one that comes to my mind is do not be afraid of failing. The history in my career in Gameloft, basically, it starts with the sentence, Dimo, this can't happen. drop it. And then, since I used to have a boss who said I'm tough-headed, and since I'm trying to explore this, worst thing that could happen is indeed you're gonna fail, you're gonna take your lessons, and you keep on doing it. And especially in live games, sometimes individuals are very afraid into pushing their ideas because they ask, okay, if it fails, what would happen? We might ruin the whole game. Usually it doesn't happen. So you should be prepared to fail, and also you should be prepared to apologize to your players. Yeah, you go out publicly say, guys, we screw up. This was a very bad idea. Thanks for pointing it to us, and we're going to do this and this and this to compensate. You can always find a way to say sorry to your player base, and it's not the end of the world if you remove a feature or if you remove half of your game, which it happened in our industry. The second, maybe most important lesson is we covered it, but still financial stability of the game. I would say that here monetization is key. So I know many people don't like monetization, especially in our industry, but monetization is the liberation of the gaming industry. It's what drives us towards being more creative, because once we have this financially stable product, we can go nuts. We are going there, and you gain trust into your stakeholders. When you are in green, you gain more and more trust, and then you just say, okay, I'm going to try this. This is a very crazy idea. Let's see what happens.
I like that. Monetization is the liberation, because we we have some merch, and the number one sold merchandise for Deconstructor Fun is a mug that says "monetize or die." So,
Yeah,
so,
I think
so
I've heard this quote from Deconstructor of Fun. Monetization in all the shackles of gaming industry is the liberation. Yeah, it's an awesome quote.
yeah, maybe this is the title of the podcast. Monetization is the liberation. Well, at least the quote. I have to agree. So kind of like going through your kind of like these three key learnings, at least what you mentioned is like number one is don't let fear to stop you from trying. I kind of put it away from the other one. And then you said apologize and compensate to players, which is good because it creates an interactive relationship, and the players can after that trust you. Even if you do something wrong, they trust you to correct if they see you doing something wrong, and that builds a good relationship. And of course, monetization is the liberation. And that goes to, we've seen a lot of layoffs happening right now, and the industry is definitely in a downturn. And sometimes I get, people asking me, should I join this studio or that studio? It's like, if you want to be on the safe side, join a studio with a live product that are profitable, that are generating their own profits, their own revenues, that are not tied to the decision making of the corporation, whether they want to continue investing or not, after which your studio will be cut. So that's at least my advice to people asking.
It's a very good advice indeed. When what matters to investors, to stakeholders, it's the direct margin of the game. And when you have a stable direct margin, you know that you are safe. Of course, from time to time, you need some challenges. You need to start with something very red and turn it into a successful product. That's way more rewarding, even on a personal level. But there are certain risks with it.
There are plenty of risk with it, and especially with startups, it kind of that risks, it makes sense, and there's a certain amount of stability that comes from how much funding the startup has raised and how much runway they have left, etc. But with companies, especially if they've invested during the booming 2020, 2021, when they thought that whatever games they will make will have insane appetite from players, and now they're pulling back their investments because they want to be more profitable and so forth. So that's a little bit of a different, because oftentimes we see people getting angry that a profitable company is closing down games, or games in development or doing some kind of a cost cutting without realizing that the company looks at things as business units. It looks at return on the investment rather than looking at the end of the balance sheet like, okay, we're still profitable. Let's keep going and let's keep investing on something that we don't even believe in anymore. Like it's
and that will probably never pay off.
Exactly.
You usually have very early indication if a product would pay off or not.
Yeah, and market changes, demands change, genres change. There are games that are launched that suddenly conquer the genre, or there are games launched that are close to yours, and you're seeing that they are not doing well. And the thesis is that you had is pretty much what the competitor had already launching that game. So even another game can be a sort of a death blow to your own project in tough times. So at least it means a pivot. So there's a lot of things that can influence. Talking about Gameloft, what is the new and exciting coming in from Gameloft apart from Asphalt Unite and the launch of Disney Speedstorm?
Speedstorm. We have a very ambitious roadmap of new titles. We're releasing, about to release in near future Dungeons and Dragons title. Is going to be a PC console game. Action RPG with some live simulation aspects. It will be developed in Montreal, so one of our top-notch studios, and we're really excited about this. There are also a bunch of other games in development, again major IPs which are yet to be disclosed, and indeed we'll try to keep this balance between having PC console titles and mobile first. Because right now it seems to be the safest approach, but there are some quite big names coming up. Maybe not that soon, but soonish.
Yeah, in development, closing in. They will launch when they are ready to be scaled. That's how it tends to go. Well, Dimo, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for I think you're our first guest ever from Gameloft. So
is it?
I think so.
I thought I'm the first Bulgarian, but I'm not sure I'm the first Gamelofter.
You might be 2 for 2.
Okay, well done.
I don't recall Bulgarians, and I definitely don't recall Gameloft people. We've had people who Kieran O'Leary, for example, but he's currently in Gameloft, but wasn't on Gameloft when he was on this podcast. So yeah.
Yeah, Kieran is a great guy. He was in Rovio.
He was in Rovio.
Oh, okay.
He was at one point he was a COO of Rovio, and shout out to Kieran. We're not going to talk about him now that he's not on the podcast, but Kieran, if you want to come on the podcast, it'd be my pleasure.
Awesome.
So Dimo, anything you want to tell our audience other than play your games?
Be brave. Do the games that you love. Play your games. Believe in your games. Don't give up unless the numbers are absolutely convincing.
Yes. Well, I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Dimo, for joining the podcast, and thank you everybody for listening. For more LiveOps learnings, connect with Dimo. That's it.
Thanks a lot for inviting me, Mishka. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry's best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand. Or subscribe to our newsletter to get all the latest insights from the Deconstructor of Fun content creators. Thanks for listening.